Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, back with another Sims info/thoughts video. So this one is covering some of the Q&A stuff from SimGuru Grant that I did not cover yesterday because the first one was getting a little bit long for my taste, and I was like, no, I don't want to cram so many topics into one single video. So I thought, okay, I'll save some of this stuff for a separate video and have it be a little bit more organized. And the topics of this one are a bit more chill and laid back anyways, so I think this is a good thing. So the first thing that I want to go over is the idea of a future Sims game having the ability to have more than 8 Sims in a single household without mods. And SimGuru Grant says, unlikely. And he further elaborated on this, saying, the number of Sims affects performance, autonomy, UI space, and more. It is a massive change. And that's kind of interesting to hear. I have sometimes wondered, yeah, we've had the 8 sim limit ever since The Sims 1, and it hasn't really changed much at all. So yeah, it would be nice to see that in the future, but performance is definitely important. It's already irritating enough how long it can take for Sims to do stuff in The Sims 3 and The Sims 4. So I think I would rather have better performance than 12 Sims and a really sluggish game. I know it is possible with the MC Command Center mod to have more than 8 Sims in your household, but I have heard there are some problems with that. I haven't tried it myself, but I think if you try to edit the Sims in Create a Sim, then it'll delete some of your Sims that you've added like past the 8 Sim limit, and maybe other glitches. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I don't know. Personally, I don't really play with big families much anyways, so yeah, because normally I don't play as households with more than 5 Sims, but usually it's like 2 or 3. Another thing SimGuru Grant said that probably won't happen are newspapers, and that's because they sort of want to recognize the changing world. And I definitely understand that, because newspapers don't really have the same relevance these days compared to, well, like when The Sims 1 first came out. Even back during that time, I'd often let the newspapers pile up on the front lawn until the paperboy was like, I'm not going to deliver them to your house anymore because there's too many on your lawn. So yeah, that was definitely a thing in my game very often. The main reason I used the newspapers in The Sims 1 was to find a job, but then the computers offer a couple more jobs per day anyways, and, well, there was like the tabloids with Superstar that were kind of neat, and it'd show who's hot and who's not, and if your Sim was famous enough, they'd actually appear in that top 10 or however many it was. But I think all of these things that could be provided in the newspaper can just be done on the computer, because this person actually does bring up a good point about just finding out what's going on around the world lately. And in The Sims 3 you could do that, so you could find out that a Sim had a baby or that a Sim passed away, and I think there were some generic ones like talking about the results of a recent llamas versus alpacas game. And with certain expansions, there were options to get other kinds of information, like the hotspots that were going to happen around clubs for that night and things like that. But again, that's all stuff that you can do online through a computer or a tablet. I think the only interaction I can think of that I sort of missed, that thought was kind of fun, was in The Sims 2, how your Sims could turn the newspaper into a paper airplane and just throw it around. I don't know. It's just so random, but I thought it was kind of funny. But yeah, I don't really have newspapers as a thing that's really high up on my wish list, so I wouldn't really mind, actually, if newspapers never came back in The Sims 4. But it would be cool if they added the ability to find out news that's gone on recently around the world in The Sims 4 by looking it up on the computer or by watching the news channel on the TV. Next up, we have a question from Sarah Robinson related to social interactions. Is it possible to add more interactions that are not object-based, like tag or hide and seek for kids to play together, or is adding more movements too difficult? And Grant says, we want to do these, but multi-sim interactions are basically the hardest thing to get right. And I can kind of see where he's coming from. The water balloon fights with seasons weren't really too well received. They are kinda, I don't know, kinda they're not that fun to watch. It's a little disappointing. It would be really cute to see tag or hide and seek in the game in the future though, if they can pull that off better than the water balloon fights. The next question here is related to opportunities and whether they could be implemented like they were in The Sims 3, as well as daily missions. And Grant says we sort of have them. They weren't that popular in The Sims 3, and we stopped making them. And yeah, I remember a lot of people hated the opportunities when the game first came out, because when the base game first launched, they would be in your face so often, and then I can't remember exactly when they introduced the option, but they did eventually put in a suppress opportunities option in the menu. But yeah, and it does kind of make the game feel a bit more RPG-like in my opinion, so personally I do not miss the opportunities. As for the daily missions, I don't really want those. That feels like a free-to-play game sort of thing. We got The Sims Mobile for that, as well as The Sims Free Play, so I really don't think that's needed in The Sims 4. It's basically the same stance that I have with those triple boost weeks that come up every now and again. Another question that came up that I found interesting is from Blank. The game needs more cold weather clothing, please. More sweaters. I have to dress all Sims almost the same for cold weather if I don't want them to wear full winter coats indoors. And Grant says, it is tough making clothing for all 4 seasons at once. We get spread thin. We will try to sprinkle in some more. And I definitely agree with Blank. I don't think there was really enough clothing labeled as cold weather wear, but I have no doubt in my mind that we're going to get more that can be worn in the winter, especially if, say, we do get a university expansion. I can imagine there being some coats included with that would kind of just make sense to wear on campus, but would still be heavy enough to protect you from the cold in winter as well. And on the flip side, I can imagine there being some good packs for hot weather wear as well, especially if we get a tropical beach location, then surely there will be clothes included with that. That would make sense for hot weather wear. And maybe even in a similar scenario that could also happen if we get a superstar pack that has a location that's maybe similar to Starlight Shores from The Sims 3 Showtime, maybe, but now that Seasons is out there, then the SimGurus, I think, can kind of keep in the back of their minds now that, yes, this expansion pack is a thing, so maybe we'll consider some clothing that can be labeled for these categories as well when it comes to future packs. And the last thing I want to talk about is worlds. So Simmer Forever asked, is there a possibility that we will get a bigger world for The Sims 4? And Grant says the world size is pretty standard at this point. Not too surprised there. I would have loved to see a bigger world. I mean, maybe they could still make an exception, because especially if we get like a farming town, I think some bigger neighborhoods would be really good with some 64 by 64 lots, so they have a lot of space. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully the new standard isn't 4 neighborhoods, because that's what Brindleton Bay was like. And even though it is my favorite world in The Sims 4 right now, I was a little bit disappointed that it's 4 neighborhoods instead of the 5 that we usually get in full-sized worlds. Something pretty exciting, though, that SimGuru Grant said when asked what is his favorite Sims world so far, is that he loves the ruins in Windenburg, San Myshuno is lit, also some of the ones in progress. So that confirms that multiple worlds are in progress for the game right now. I mean, that's not really too surprising, but still pretty exciting to me, because I really need more worlds. I am running out of space in my game. I think I complain about this in just about every Create a Sim video that I make these days. But yeah, it's kind of interesting just thinking about, okay, so what are all of the worlds in progress? And my guesses are a university campus, a tropical world, a farming town, and probably something with witches. I don't know, I'm not sure if they're working on witches yet, but it would be cool to see Magic Town from The Sims 1 in HD, even though they don't really seem to like the idea of remaking a world from a previous Sims game. Otherwise, I think they would have done that by now, but yeah, I don't know. There could also be a past era world being worked on, like, I don't know, something from the Victorian era or a prehistoric one, because I don't know, I think they will do some sort of into the past pack eventually, but it would be interesting to see, I think. Sadly, one of those is not an empty world in the style of Newcrest, as Ghost Snaily asks, can you consider adding an empty world this year, maybe with oriental or cultural vibes? A Chinatown is what I have in mind. And Grant says, we are booked up adding full ones for now. That's a bit unfortunate to me because I could really use a second empty world. I filled up Newcrest ages ago, and if I had another empty world to work with, then I probably would make a lot more Sims, because I really like making Sims, but then I want to actually put them in the game, and then I don't really have much room to do that. So hopefully it's not out of the question. Hopefully we'll get Create a World eventually, but I don't think that's going to happen for at least another year. But it is good to hear that they are working on a lot of full worlds, so hopefully they will include some empty lots. Brindleton Bay, I think, was fairly good with that, even though the world itself was smaller overall. But yeah, that was pretty good, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. And that wraps up another Sims info/thoughts video, so feel free to let me know in the comments section below what you think about any of the topics that I discussed this video, and be sure to leave a like or comment or even subscribe, because it lets me know that you like my channel, my videos, and it helps you keep up to date more easily with the latest content for me. I do videos on The Sims, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more, so I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching!